about that? We're on the road to the Saturday night's main event this Saturday from San Antonio, Texas. What do you make of this? Obviously, last time we had a Saturday night's main event a month ago, it pretty much filled in for the pay-per-view we don't have in the month of December, right? A lot of build-up for that. It took a little bit to have some build-up for this, right? We just started getting matches last week. Now the card seems pretty full, but it's not like last time around where we knew like the United States champion was going to be crowned at Saturday's main event a good month in advance, right? Some of these matches between Gunther and Jey Uso were made just last week. And Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax was made just this week. But with the Royal Rumble a week after that, and right now only 3 matches announced for the Royal Rumble, and 2 of them are announced when you buy tickets because they're the Royal Rumble. What do you make of Saturday's main event happening just 1 week before the Royal Rumble? Is this killing some of the Rumble, the build for the Rumble? Do you like how everything is playing out? Are there any matches that you think that we're still waiting for the Royal Rumble that you could see happening that are right there? They just haven't announced?
No, I think we're in a good spot with what we have for Saturday night's main event. I mean, it's a pretty stacked card, and obviously we have the contract signing with Cody and Kevin Owens. And obviously it's taking place from, I think it's the Frostbank Arena in San Antonio.
Yeah, it's an arena that's had many different names.
Yeah, well, as many have over the years, but yes. Yeah, I mean it's in the neck of the woods of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, and Michael Cole is a resident. I think he resides in San Antonio, so it's a homecoming for some of the WWE talent, and I like the fact that you got Shawn Michaels moderating this this contract signing, because the stuff that Kevin Owens has been doing lately, it's been very intriguing. I mean, from top to bottom, I think this is going to be a really good show this coming weekend.
So next week, hopefully at this time, we're talking Royal Rumble and we're talking the full card. We only have 3 matches, right? They're expecting 60,000 at the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Are we only going to have three matches at the Royal Rumble? Like, what's going on here?
I don't necessarily think so. I feel like something's gonna tick. I know I like to see things built, over a decent amount of time, but something's gonna pop here between now and the Rumble where we're gonna have an extra match or two. Like it's just a feeling that I have personally. And I'll be honest with you. You got the women's Royal Rumble, you got the men's Royal Rumble. I mean, that's what people are going for that's the star of the show. It's the name of the event. It's the men's and women's Royal Rumble. That's why people are going. So, as long as they put the women's Royal Rumble starts it and the men's ends it, whatever's in between is really just filler, and we just need something quality. I think Penta's going to have a match. I don't know why.
You don't think Penta will be in the Rumble?
Oh, I think he's in the Rumble. I think he's going to be in the Rumble. Why wouldn't you put him in the Rumble at this point?
So is he going to have a match and be in the Rumble?
I think at this point, I don't know if they're going to double duty him. He's definitely going to be in the Rumble. He's going to be in the Royal Rumble match. I don't know if he has a separate match. I mean, it's tough to say at this point because we don't really know. I mean, does Chad Gable do something? Like, is Dominic Mysterio going to do something? Like, there's a few things that are out in play that could possibly happen between now and the Royal Rumble. And here's the thing, too. You have this Chad Gable Dominic Mysterio situation where Dominic is, I guess, helping Chad Gable with the black magic luchador, supposedly. I don't know what that means. So I'm wondering if that's something that's going to pop in the next week or so. Because I do feel like Penta and Chad Gable, we're going to cross that bridge again, I think that's going to happen at some point. So I'm just curious to see how quickly they do it because time's kind of running out. I mean, are there any particular matches that you'd like to see at the Rumble besides the 2 matches themselves? Well,
it's difficult, right? Because Saturday night's main event is this weekend. So Clearly, obviously, there's matches right there. And I do think that while the Royal Rumble for sure is the highlight of the show, it's a stadium-sized event. I imagine this is going to be a 3-hour pay-per-view. It doesn't have to be 5, but a 3-hour event, when people like myself are coming from a long ways for the Royal Rumble. And last year, I know they only had the 4 matches. again, that's fine. But I think that is really the minimum, right? That is as low as you can go when it comes to the amount of matches on the card. So they definitely have to have another match in there. And when it comes to only having 4 matches, they do have to have some importance, because if you are only going to have 4 matches, one of them can't be some absolute throwaway like match that would be on a house show to kick off the show. Like, it has to be it has to be the women's championship. It has to be the world heavyweight championship. So I will say it has to be another decent match that takes up some time. The Royal Rumbles each take an hour, right? So it's got to be something that's could take 20 minutes, right?
Do you see Braun Breaker and Sheamus running it back again? I mean, I know that's
and that's the thing with Saturday Night's Main Event this week. This is why I saw this on the schedule and thought that is very intriguing that they're doing that. They're not even putting a pay-per-view between the two Saturday Night's Main Event. They're having literally Saturday Night's Main Event follow up a Saturday Night's Main Event. I know that they're doing these once every a quarter. I think they should have tried to spread this out a little bit. My ideal schedule for Saturday Night's Main Event, with being one in December, would have been one in March, right? Because we know we have that long break between March 1st and WrestleMania. And also, too, I think these do a good job in promoting pay-per-views, as they did historically. Saturday Night's Main Event, I think back in the 80s and 90s, did a good job as like the WrestleMania contract signing, that kind of thing. Similar to what we saw with like the WrestleMania press conference last year, and what I think we're going to see again this year. So I think the middle of March, a good month away from the Royal Rumble or from WrestleMania, and a good couple weeks after Elimination Chamber would be a great spot for a Saturday Night's Main Event in the middle of March, early April. And then obviously maybe have one in like June, then have one in August, then have one in December again, whatever. But I don't think they need one right now. I don't think there really needs to be one right here. I think this one specifically doesn't feel like the last one. It feels a lot more forced. And it's very funny because we're coming off of the Raw debut on Netflix, and you've been watching Raw obviously since Netflix, and how it looks much different, and how it's like, all right, this is back to being a wrestling show. Triple H obviously presented us Saturday Night's Main Event in December, and he presented us the Raw on Netflix debut as, you've never seen anything like this before. This is going to be like the Super Bowl every week. And those things were, and then Raw now looks like Raw, which I'm fine with. I think Raws have been great lately. They've been typical looking Raws, but just better and presented better. But when it comes,
and they're 2.5 hours.
They're and here's the thing. And me, I'm somebody who hated the 3-hour Raws, and these are 2.5 hours. And particularly, I'd probably still like 2 hours, but I don't mind this. And the reason I don't mind this is because everything does have a place, meaning that there isn't a time. Meaning it's 2.5 hours because it's 2.5 hours. The 3-hour Raws, to me, and not every week, but a lot of weeks, felt like you have this time constraint that you have to fill. Raw right now, that is why it is better, because they're not putting in anything just to make it get to the 3-hour mark. They're not just dragging out longer commercial breaks or doing anything like that. If they have enough for 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours. And I imagine next week, if next week they don't have 2.5 hours, they only have 2 hours and 5 minutes, they'll put out 2 hours and 5 minutes. That's why Raw's been feeling good, is because it's natural.
What are your thoughts on SmackDown being 3 hours now? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, so far, I think the first SmackDown that was 3 hours felt all right. I think last week's SmackDown felt a little long. But and just in general, having that, first off, having the time constraints, regardless, even like for a pay-per-view, because they never did right back in the day, and they still don't today, helps make the show go by better, right? Whether it's long or it's short, just knowing that what you're putting out there isn't to fill time. It means something. It matters. So that's why I don't mind Raw, because everything matters. It doesn't feel like anything's out there to fill time. I think SmackDown's been doing a decent job with the 3 hours. I'll give it that. It's still early though. I probably said the same thing in 2012 about Raw until 10 years later. I
already feel like it's too long for me personally. I feel
like because you're used to it ending at 10 o'clock, and I do feel like last week on SmackDown, I think it was, where we were just kind of dragging things out to get to the main event.
Well, to me personally, like the way I watched it this past week, it was like I watched like the first hour, and then like I kind of watched the second hour. Like I kind of fast forward through a little bit, and then I got to the third hour. So it was like I watched the beginning and I watched the end, like the first hour and the third hour. The middle was kind of like you said, it was almost like they're just trying to get to the finish line.
I think with these 3 hour Raws or SmackDowns, they feel like a 2 hour SmackDown with an extra match. And what they're essentially doing is they're making that main event match that would be from like 9:45 to 10 go 9:45 to like 10:10, 10:15. And then they're like either doing like a segment or a long commercial or something to just get us to that main event. That last hour doesn't have a lot in it. I feel like the last 2 weeks, the last hour is just like a match. Like we come back from break at 10:10. We have a segment at 10:20. We go to another commercial at 10:30. We have the entrances for the main event at 10. We go to another commercial 10:40. We start the main event. Like, so it feels like it's an extra hour just for one match. And as I said, they're kind of dragging the 9:30 spot. They're kind of pushing that into 10 so it kills more time so that, we don't have a lot of time to kill in that last hour to get to the main event.
Let me ask you this. Do you think this 3-hour thing, you think eventually they'll get rid of it, or you think they're going to be
well, Triple H also said, too, that he expects it's not going to last into spring. I was actually just thinking the other day, right, because we always have the Hall of Fame ceremony after SmackDown and this upcoming year, right? I can't imagine we're going to have, oh, please God, have a 3-hour SmackDown and then the Hall of Fame ceremony the night before WrestleMania. I'm praying that that's not the case, that the Hall of Fame starts at 11:15 Eastern time.
I feel like what they should do is they should just incorporate the Hall of Fame into SmackDown and be done with it.
Yeah,
like all in one shot.
I've said that for years, right? You know, just have the Hall of Fame as SmackDown. Yeah. There was many years where I paid to go to the Hall of Fame, and I went to the Hall of Fame, and I was okay with it. I didn't say, oh, it would have been better if we had 3 or 4 matches. For so many years, so many people went to the Hall of Fame, and again, there was no wrestling. So if you present just the Hall of Fame, people will pay and still come because they have done it in the past. So that wouldn't be because like,
it's WWE, but it's different. It's like I know you've kind of used this analogy before. It's almost like a cocktail event where it's like, it's not wrestling. It's like, you're talking about the greats of what they've done for the business. So it's just kind of like, it's cool. It's like an award show, essentially.
It's like it's like when you watch, the same reason you watch the documentaries or the roundtables or any of that kind of stuff. Especially too, if you got, people who are interesting to listen to. Right. So SmackDown hasn't been so bad so far. Raw's been great. But but the point where we kind of track back is where Raw after the Netflix debut has just looked like a regular Raw. We're back to the regular stage, back to the regular size crowds, sold out sort of, right? We still have some tarped off seats where the speakers are and things like that. We still have the traditional stage, nothing exciting or special. No, crazy pyro if it doesn't call for it. None of that kind of stuff. No Triple H opening the show or The Rock making an appearance.
Besides, Penta's really great pyro. That looks good.
I mean, but the show overall has just felt like a good Raw. They felt like good Raws, but they don't feel like the first Raw felt like I was watching WrestleMania. I mean, celebrity appearances, musical performances, drone shots, like the arena itself kind of added to the energy.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, am I crazy for saying this? I feel like in the 2 weeks, which I know it's only been 2 weeks, I feel like Penta has done. I feel like his run in WWE that's already only 2 weeks old is already more successful than what it was in AEW. I feel like WWE's actually got a plan for him, and I feel like they're really going to push him to the top.
I mean, really hope so, right? We don't know yet. We still have LA Knight not being the world champion and people like that. So we will see. I definitely enjoy Penta's first 2 weeks on WWE.
Doesn't he make everybody in the ring look great? Like, I think he did a great, like, he sells so well. Like, he made Chad Gable look great on his debut, and then this past week he made Pete Dunne look great. I mean, he's a tactician in the ring, and he's super talented. He's got a great look, a great feel. But the great thing is, it seems like I'm not Pete Dunne, I'm not Chad Gable, obviously, but I bet you those guys are having a lot of fun mixing it up with Penta for sure.
So with this week having Saturday night's main event, right? It's not going to be at the Nassau Coliseum where it all started. It's not going to be a full sold out stadium crowd. It's probably going to look like a Monday Night Raw, right? Where it has like the set, but some of it's curtained off. That, the regular typical TV show look, right? It might have some retroness, but I don't think it's going to be like the last one. With this being this weekend, is there anything that you feel really deserves to be on this show? Or does it kind of feel like a lot of this stuff was made because Saturday night's main event existed?
That's a good question.
I mean, I think obviously Gunther and Jey Uso, that felt kind of like thrown out last minute. I guess Braun Breaker versus Sheamus for the IC title is of interest.
that has Saturday Night's main event written all over it. The Breaker and Sheamus Intercontinental Championship match. Honestly, like for me, just looking at the card itself, you could have gotten away with, and I know for the fans that are going to be in attendance for the Royal Rumble, having the Gunther Jey Uso match would be a good filler at the Royal Rumble, and same with Rhea and Nia Jax. So I'm curious to see how they're going to piece this together because, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, 4 matches is kind of like the minimum. You got to have the men's rumble, you got the women's rumble, then you got to have 2 quality matches in between. So I'm curious to see how they're going to fill in the gaps for Royal Rumble because they're putting out a really good Saturday Night's main event, which I plan on watching live. It's good. I feel like it's a star-studded affair.
Yeah, no, I mean, I enjoyed the Saturday Night's main event last time around.
Yep.
Look forward to it this week. I just wonder where. Do you feel right that after the Saturday Night's main event, maybe we might have a better picture of the Royal Rumble? Or is there anything coming out of this? Do you see Jey Uso winning the championship? Do you see Nia Jax becoming the new Raw Women's Champion?
I see one title change, and you didn't mention the match yet. I think Sheamus beats Braun Breaker on Saturday Night's main event. That's my prediction for Saturday night. I think Sheamus is going to get the title.
All right, so Sheamus is going to be the new Intercontinental Champion.
Yes, I think he walks into the Rumble as the Intercontinental Champion. I really do.
So, on paper, do you look forward to this Saturday night's main event more than the first one that was in December, or equal? Where do you place this in that excitement?
I would say equal. I wouldn't say it's better or worse. I feel like it's pretty equal because there's a lot of great matches that are coming up, and I thought the original, obviously the pomp and circumstance of the first one, that's a whole different thing. But now you're in a groove. You're on the second one. This is the real litmus test to see how successful it's going to be because you can have like Raw on Netflix. That first taste was great. Second week was pretty good. If it's the same thing with Saturday Night Main Event. The first one was a litmus test per se, where it's like, okay, we're going to pull out all the stops. We're going to put on a great show. But when you get to the second one, this is what we expect going forward. So I think having something like this I think it's going to be really good for the Saturday Night's Main Event brand. And I'm also just curious to see what dominoes from this potentially affect the Rumble because the Rumble, they're back-to-back weekends.
If you ran WWE and they wanted your opinion on which show should we be treating as the show to get new eyeballs on the WWE crowd, more as the infomercial for WWE, would you lean towards Monday Night Raw on a weekly basis or just in general like the opening Raw on Netflix? Or would you lean towards things like Saturday Night's Main Event, knowing that it's on things like NBC, which in America is probably the biggest network?
Yeah, that's where I would go. I think I have friends of mine that they're not into it like we are. They know enough to get themselves in trouble and be dangerous and have a conversation, but they don't follow it like we do. And I think getting them to sit down and watch like a Saturday Night's Main Event like this, the way this card is built, I think it's a good way to introduce folks that are maybe they're not fans or they see things trending on Twitter or social media. This is a good way to get them to lock in for a couple hours, watch a really good show, and then maybe you hook them, maybe you don't. But I think Saturday Night's Main Event is probably the best way to do it. NBC obviously that's part of it as well. That's the cachet behind that. So I think the combination of NBC plus this is a quarterly event, so this is a special event. So I think getting somebody exposed to that, give them just a little taste, and then they may be like, oh, this is kind of cool. Maybe I'll watch Netflix next week.